What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. If this is your first time watching Adapt and Respond, thank you for joining us here. We talk college football year round. If that is something you're into, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, like this video, and answer the question in the comments below. Do you believe that Nebraska is finally going to reach the potential that we think it has in 2025? Many folks that listen to this show, watch this show on YouTube, where you should subscribe if you haven't already, really don't like hearing Nebraska is on its way back. I'm sorry to tell you, it's true, just not in the nature that you would like it to be true. Let's start with this. They went bowling for the first time since 2016 last year, and they did it with a true freshman quarterback in Dylan Raiola, who threw for over 2,800 yards and threw almost as many TDs as he did picks. But it's okay, because if you watched him play, you saw a guy that was really trying to take care of the football. He took the check down when he was there, and he did not have the help at wide receiver that we would like to see him have, to say nothing of the offensive play calling was not great. It's one of the reasons that Dana Holgorsen was brought in as the consultant, and then later became an offensive coordinator in very short order. More to say about that here in a second. But I think the other thing to notice here is that he's got a couple more weapons, Dylan Raiola, that he'll be able to take advantage of in Uzziah Hunter, right? Dane Key, and I think the favorite of the bunch among Nebraska fans, Corey Barney. Emmett Johnson could be a guy, right? I think the offensive line is going to be good, and we know about Matt Rhule's reputation for turning programs around. Year 3 is magic year. Year 3 is the year in which they're supposed to go and win 10 games if they're keeping with the Temple and the Baylor program that works so well for Matt Rhule, who has really made his name flipping programs into winners and asking people to wait and let him do it his way. And everybody at Nebraska has been pulling in the same direction, even as the guy that hired him, Trev Alberts, took a job at Texas A&M. Troy Dannon comes in, he understands exactly what he has in Nebraska, which is a football program that is perennially top 10 in revenue generated, despite not having a team that has been anywhere capable of winning the Big Ten championship, playing in the college football playoff, to say nothing of who has been their best player outside of Trey Palmer. It's really difficult to identify over the last, decade. I think when we talk about Dylan Raiola, though, we need to talk about him in conversation with Dana Holgorsen, who is going to be an offensive coordinator for the first time since 2010. I don't think that this fact gets brought up enough. When Dana Holgorsen took over as the offensive coordinator at Oklahoma State, the last time he was one, he set records. They put up 45 points per game. They had the number 2 passing offense in the sport, 355 yards per game. It was Brandon Whedon throwing for 3,000 yards to a Justin Blackman who had 1,500 yards. They had a 1,500-yard tailback in Kendall Hunter. Some of y'all don't even know who that man is, but that man was a monster in 2010, to say nothing of who they became in 2011. And really, the Whedon years are the high watermark for Mike Gundy's program. That's a Freudian slip if there ever was one. Mike Gundy's program at Oklahoma State. And famously, Dana wasn't expecting to be there very long. I talked to a beat writer at the time that was like, hey, Dana didn't even buy a house in Stillwater, right? He stayed in a hotel because he was not planning to be there for very long, because he didn't need to. He did what he did. They put up a gaudy amount of yards. They scored 539 points. And he put together what I think is what people come to expect from Oklahoma State. Matter of fact, one of the things that he helped really Oklahoma State bring to itself at a time when the Big 12 was pass happy is everybody's trying to score on every single play all the time. And he was very inventive in how he took the principles that he learned at Iowa Wesleyan and coaching for Mike Leach, and he put them into action at Oklahoma State. Who is your best player? Who is your second best player? Make sure those guys get the ball more than anybody else. That's how you go and score points and win games. The air raid, as I like to tell people, is not about spreading the ball around. It is about creating matchups that are favorable for your best player against the worst player you can get him matched up on. And if it's their best, that's okay. You're going to take that. So you'd see Michael Crabtree show up, just as you saw Justin Blackman show up. Thing about Dana Holgorsen, though, is he was always going to make a move. And when he went to West Virginia, people forget this. He didn't go there as the head coach. He was hired away from Oklahoma State to Morgantown. And then Bill Stewart And Dana Holgorsen had a falling out that Oliver Luck needed to do something about. And I think at the time, there was a coach in waiting kind of philosophy that was in place. I don't know how many coaches in waiting like to wait. And I don't think that there are a whole bunch of coaches that got the job that are looking to give it up. They tend to be Kobe about this. They're not passing anything. Saw this with Bobby Bowden and Jimbo Fisher, right? We saw this with Manny Diaz and Mac Brown. It's not really going the way that you expect it to go. I really don't like the coach in waiting moniker. Like, they got to go on Utah. It might work, but usually somebody gets impatient or it starts to fall apart for the same reason that a 2-quarterback system does. You got to have a guy. You can't have a guy that might be the guy. You got to have a guy that is the guy. And when it's time to make the other guy the guy, just do it. Don't do the coach in waiting tag. But I think this is one of those things where it just didn't work out because Dana Holgorsen was always wanted to be a head coach. And it turned out to be a pretty outstanding run at West Virginia, all things considered. You know, Geno Smith, Tavon Austin down the line, then to Houston. And Dana has always been kind of loud about what his position should be as a head coach or how he's not getting the kind of help that he wanted to get at a place like Houston. And then he, gets fired and he goes on his merry way, kind of figures some things out. And he gets a call from Matt Rule going, hey, we're really down offensively. Can you help us? And I think the best way for Dana Holgorsen to help him, it was mostly considered, was to make him the offensive coordinator and to demote Marcus Satterfield. And that's what they're doing going into 2025. If you're a Nebraska fan, you wanted this to happen given the results that you saw with the limited time that Dana Holgorsen had as the OC for Dylan Raiola. Now, what I find to be most interesting about this is if it works, it means that Dylan Raiola is going to throw for a ton of yards. 3,000, 3,500 yards, I think, is what you can expect. He could be a 4,000-yard passer if they're good. If he finds out that Dane Key has the same sort of afterburners that Trey Palmer does. If they get a run game going, and frankly, if the defense is still pretty good, and I think they'll be pretty good. What I'm worried most about is how this is going to mesh with the kind of football that Nebraska has been expected to play forever, right? This is a program that I believe the joke is, hey, it was felony to throw the football forward in Nebraska. You didn't do that. We ran this option and we were really good at it. We ran it into the 21st century because couldn't nobody do nothing with Eric Crouch, among other things. So you see all these passing records that are being broken and you see these wide receiver records that are being broken, frankly, because they have no records to speak of. But you didn't need to. The thing that has made the best teams in college football, has rarely been their passing offense. It has been their ability to run the football and their ability to stop other people scoring. You don't need to be a great passing team. You need to be a credible passing team. However, one of the ways that you can make the jump from not good to pretty good in a very short amount of time is to improve your passing game dramatically. So if you're, say, Colorado and you don't have a run game, but you've got a pretty damn good quarterback, all Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year, and a good wide receiving core, use that to your advantage to go win 8 or 9 games and continue to try to build yourself into the kind of program that can run the ball more efficiently and perhaps be something like balanced. I think when you look at the national champs at Ohio State, they were balanced. They could run the ball really well and they could throw the ball really well. But that's not needed to be the case once you have the talent. Nebraska doesn't have the talent yet to be what Georgia is, which is the kind of program that hasn't had a 1,000-yard rusher since 2019 and hasn't had more than 1,000-yard receiver in a single season ever. They don't need to do it, right? It is a program that is synonymous with Herschel Walker, right? With Nick Chubb, with Sony Michel, with Noshawn Moreno. You know more of the tailbacks at Georgia than you know the quarterbacks because it wasn't until recently that we put such an emphasis on the quarterback's ability to make plays, not just with his arm, but with his legs. And you're seeing that become a common trait, the +1 game, as many of the coaches like to refer to it, where you have to account for what the runner might do. I think it can work. I think that, yeah, Nebraska could be the kind of program that puts up 400, 450 yards a game, but I think they're going to have to throw the ball all over the yard to do it. And that might be just good enough for them to get to 9 or 10 wins this year, which is all you want if you're a Nebraska fan. You're not yet looking to contend for the Big Ten championship or contend for a college football playoff spot. though winning 9-10 games in this league puts you in that spot and gives you the kind of cachet to go to recruit in the portal and in high school to get the kind of players that you would otherwise see at Penn State, Ohio State, Oregon, Georgia, Alabama, LSU. Nebraska can do that. The brand is there, but right now they're in the midst of rebuilding it. And I think with Dana Holgorsen and Dylan Raiola, they got a shot. Back on Adapt and Respond with me, RJ Young. If you are new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe and hit that like button and answer the question in the comments below. Do you think that just a simple tweak is going to turn Georgia back into the kind of team that can win the national championship? Because it feels like that's what you're doing in Kirby Smart's 10th year at Georgia. You're going to have an opportunity, right? It's going to be a lot of fun if they can tweak it here and there. One of the things that I find fascinating about last year for Georgia is who they took losses to and where they ended up anyway, okay? So they took a loss to an Alabama team that turned out to win 9 games and showed itself to be really good when it was good and really bad when it wasn't. And that's after Carson Beck had been really terrible in the second half of games, or excuse me, the first half of games. He just wasn't always there. And needing something like balance out of your quarterback position, yeah, you got to have that at Georgia. But that's one thing. Will Gunnar Stockton be better or worse? We don't know yet. We think that he'll be better. But given the experience that Beck has, I think you would have much rather been able, like to have kept him and told Gunnar to wait one more year rather than watch him go into the transfer portal out at Miami. But it is what it is at this point. Gunnar Stockton's the guy. They took a loss to Ole Miss that did not seem like the kind that would come to Georgia's door in years past, right? But they were able to beat teams like Texas twice. They had been on the ropes against Florida. What happens? What's the denominator here? What is working and what's not working for Georgia? And it was really difficult to identify this in the heat of the season. But at one point, you're talking about 4 of the 7 best offensive linemen at Georgia are injured, can't play. And at another point, you're talking about your healthy tailbacks being true freshmen and walk-ons, which Georgia still pretty damn good, right? It just means you don't have a lot of experience at those positions. This year, you're still big across the offensive line. You go 6'4", 310 plus, and you'll have 230 pounds at tailback, right? You'll have guys that can do it. And it's about, can you keep those men healthy long enough for the season to go? And that is going to be, I think, a small change that reaps a huge amount of benefit offensively, because you'll notice that the Georgia defense doesn't really show signs of fatigue and hasn't since Kirby Smart took over as head coach. One of the major reasons that is simple. They rotate often. That defensive line is constantly rotating in. Their linebackers rotate at the edge positions. It's really difficult to game plan for a defensive line that can go 8 or 9 deep anytime they want, right? That has fresh edge rusher after fresh edge rusher after fresh edge rusher, 5 stars at most of these positions, 4 stars, you can expect it. So not only are they healthy and fresh, they're talented. So you get to see a guy like Jalen Walker absolutely positively go to work on that Texas offensive line in a way that nobody had ever been able to see it before. So on critical downs and distances, you are able to have him on the field getting a blow here and there. It's one of the reasons why teams started going fast. You want to try to catch your opponent, if you're an offense play caller, in an alignment, but also in a personnel that they have a difficult time defending in. I think we first look at what alignment they come out in. Could we exploit it over and over again? Let's say you know that you can beat them to the field side with a certain play because they're weak at this linebacker position and their safety just can't run with your slot. Perhaps that's it, right? So you're going to try to hit that as often as you can. But the thing that Georgia's also been good at is conditioning guys to be able to play entire games if they must. So those short bouts of needing to go, 4, 5, 6 plays without a break, they're built for that too. The small change, I think, is going to be quite simple for Georgia. Stay healthy. Keep your veterans on the field. That's it. Now, for Georgia, that's going to be let's see how good you are taking care of your offensive line, and let's see how deep the running back room is. I'm kind of curious because basically since, my goodness, we got to go back to 2019 for the last time that Georgia had a 1,000-yard rusher in a single season. Yeah, they haven't needed it. So it's more about, can we have an offense where we throw the ball down the field and people catch it? And we're healthy on the offensive line. We're healthy at defensive back, at running back. I think they're going to be better at wide receiver this year than they were last year, because I think if nothing else, you put those guys on the jugs machine. I often wonder this, and I actually was talking to a Georgia fan about this, dude that went to Georgia. How much of 2019 LSU's offense does Georgia just leave on the table because that's not part of their identity? And by that, I mean, at one point over the course of the year, Joe Brady had told LSU's wide receivers, you will catch 10,000 balls across the calendar year, right? From what we do in winter all the way through playing the season. You'll catch a lot of passes. Some of that is just lining up on the jugs machine and running the route to go catch, right? Or put your hands on the ball, get used to catching it in contested situations. I don't think that that's a part of Georgia's program. I think one of the things that is fascinating about them is how much of the wide receiver room is built on the idea of you might actually need to be the straw stirring the drink this year or in this game. And how much of this is, I know that I'm big. I know that I'm fast. I know that if I put a little bit of good on tape, I'm wearing a Georgia uniform and I can get to the NFL in 3 years. I don't think that it is beneficial for Georgia to change how it is getting down with its offensive play calling, right? I don't expect Mike Bobo to all of a sudden go 70-30 pass to run. However, I do think it is worth pointing out that if they are not one of the worst teams in the SEC in drop passes, and they are not 11 out of 16 in yards per carry at just 406, we're talking about a national championship team. The margins are that thin for this program. And what's scary about Georgia is these are things you can fix. For other programs, you can't fix those things by simply recruiting or developing. You're just going to have that as your weakness and you're going to try to cover it up. And that's what football is about. Football is about identifying your opponent's weakness and exploiting it, identifying your own weakness and trying to compensate for it. Whoever can do that best usually wins. And at this level, every coach knows how to coach for the most part. Not all coaches know clock management, but all of them know the game. So you're not necessarily going to get out coached. There are times when you do, and it does happen. But more often than not, they've got a beater. That's what they got. They have a guy that it doesn't matter that you had the best defensive play call for him. He's just going to win because his Jimmy is better than your Joe. So it's, hey, you want to go and you want to roll coverages to one side. We have a guy over here that can beat you. So if you want to take away Zachariah Branch, to use an example at Georgia, we can throw the ball the other way and we'll be just fine. But that guy's got to catch the football. I think Gunnar Stockton is good enough. And one of the things that is also interesting about Gunnar Stockton is he sets all these records as a passer in high school. And I'm really asking myself, is he going to get a chance to get anywhere near those numbers at Georgia? Can he be a 3,000-yard passer? Yeah. Can he be a 4,000-yard passer? Maybe. But I just don't see that being part of the game. If they're healthy on the offensive line, they're getting the push on the offensive line, they're able to run the ball with the kind of authority that they've shown themselves capable of in years past. Again, it's Georgia, right? And the first thing you got to worry about is getting past that defense. And again, Georgia fans, they'll tell you, run the ball, BAWL, and please get out of the defense's way. Don't make this any harder than it has to be. Because the one thing that could happen that hasn't yet is Georgia turns into some Frankenstein version of Iowa 2023, and nobody wants that. I don't think they're going to do that because they're really good at quarterback, right? That's it. Iowa hadn't had a quarterback in years. They had one. Cade McNamara got hurt. I think they got one in Mark Gronowski. But a small tweak here, a small tweak there, and Georgia's once again playing for a national championship. And that could be huge in this year where we're expecting perhaps a changing of the guard. If the Big Ten wins a third national championship without an SEC team in the title game, we're going to have to really start asking questions about which league actually runs this sport. Back on Adapt and Respond with me, RJ Young. If you are new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe. Hit that like video and answer the question in the comments below. Do you think Mikey Keene can be QB1 for Michigan? Because I don't. However, we're in the middle of camp, and Chip Lindsey is doing what I expect most offensive coordinators in something like a QB battle is saying. He's doing and saying, yeah, I think Mikey Keene has a shot. But the quote that he gave was pretty interesting. And if you give it a little bit of thought, perhaps you can talk yourself into that too. That's not what I got from it, but I'll give you the quote anyway. He told the Wolverine, I think so. Talking about, QB1 going to Mikey Keene, who transferred in from Fresno State, who also got to play against Michigan last year and spent a little time at UCF, and we'll talk about that here in just a second. One thing he's got is experience, right? He did miss those opportunities, talking about last year, but in some ways, we got Jaden and Bryce a ton of reps, talking about spring practice. Mikey's played in an offense that is similar from our passing game standpoint, so I think the opportunity is still there for him. We'll just see how it plays out. Keene, who has, played more than 2,000 snaps of college football, who has accumulated more than 6,200 yards passing, also played a year in the same system that Chip Lindsey runs at Central Florida. Now, there's that, and there is the idea that you want a guy who knows the system to help educate and prepare the young, more talented quarterback for what is to come, right? Chip Lindsey also had Drake May. Drake May, first round pick, great talent at UNC, probably should have won more football games and done more given his talent with North Carolina, right? That is not a knock on him, it's a knock on North Carolina. But Chip Lindsey helped do that. He has that same skill set in a Bryce Underwood. I don't think you're going to sacrifice what you can get out of Bryce Underwood, even in a true freshman season, to get Mikey Keene and his experience out there, okay? However, the other thing that you have here, along with Jake Garcia, is a capable, experienced starter that knows the system. That's it, right? The thing that is still absolutely ridiculous about Michigan last year is either the most impressive stat or it is the most egregiously engaging in malpractice stat of all time, is that Michigan managed to win 9 games, beat the national champs and Alabama, averaging 5.04 yards per attempt, per pass attempt. And they did it with Davis Warren, with Jack Tuttle, and with Alex Orji. Now, I've beaten that one up because it needs to be beaten up because they basically won 8 games, without a quarterback. But now they got a quarterback. They got 2. They might have 3, depending on how you feel about Jake Garcia. And the last time they had a quarterback, they won the national championship, right? Like that's how that went. It's a different offensive coordinator and it's a different quarterback. But I don't think we're going to see another depth chart at a place with the kind of pedigree and class as Michigan as we did last year. I just think that Sharon Moore and Kurt Campbell overestimated what they had in Alex Orji, and it was downhill from there. I don't think that's the case with a guy like Bryce Underwood, and I think that's why they sold out to get him, even calling in Larry Ellison to kind of sweeten the pot so that the NIL deal stood up to the kind of guy that was already committed to play at LSU and was the best player at his position also inside the state, period. This was a tremendous win for him. This is a tremendous win for Michigan, and I don't think they're willing to risk a year of him sitting down somewhere so they can get Mikey Keene some opportunities to play and give him some snaps. On the other side of the ball, I think it's as simple as how good Derek Moore can be and when they get Rod Moore back. Ernest Hausman is going to be great. That linebacking core is going to be good. It would not shock me at all to find out that Ernest is a captain at Michigan. He's played that way, and I think he has shown himself to be that kind of a veteran. But Derek Moore gets to be, I think, what Josiah Stewart was. Like, it's a guy that had 4 sacks and like 37 pressures with fewer attempts at the quarterback than Josiah Stewart. Now, he's also expected to come on because there's no Kenneth Grant there. There's no Mason Graham there. Now, Rashawn Benny might be that guy, right? We'll see. And if you get Rod Moore back, especially given what he had meant to their secondary when he's healthy, Wink Martindale is right back to where he was last year and the year before, where his defense is really doing the job. Excuse me, the year before. That was Mike McDonald. My bad. Wink Martindale's back to doing the job, right? Like, I think they've got everything they need. So when my 136 comes out here in a couple weeks' time, you'll get to see where Michigan is ranked, and I'll tell you a lot of why I put them there and why I still am going to give them the benefit of the doubt. A lot of it also has to do with what I've been talking about throughout the show here, right? If you're watching the segment, there is the full show that you can watch, and I encourage you to do so. It's much more clean. It's easier to follow, so forth, so on. But the thing that they're able to do is lean into their identity. And their identity is built on Jim Harbaugh, who built his identity on Bo Schembechler, which is to run the football. That's what they want to do. Lloyd Carr did this too. They want to run the ball. They don't care to have a 3,000-yard passer. They care to be able to take advantage of throwing the ball downfield. I continue to point out to people, J.J. McCarthy threw for just 2,900 yards across 15 games in that national championship year. That means most of what they were doing was damage that needed to be done, where they knew they had a look that they could exploit. They weren't going to be a pass-first team. They were going to be a run-first, play defense, play-action pass team. And J.J. was great in those situations, and his legs, his speed gave them the opportunity to get out of bad plays, or when plays broke down, he would get a shot to go do something about it, and it worked. That's the playbook. That is what they're going to try to do once again with Bryce Underwood at quarterback. You got a 1A and a 1B in Justice Haynes and Jordan Marshall, right? You got guys that can carry the load. Your offensive line is going to be pretty damn good because that's just what Sharon Moore's been able to recruit and develop, even as a head coach. If they can develop Donovan McCulley into a star, or Samaj Morgan, or even Fred Moore, then you'll be able to answer my big overarching question for the offense, which is who's catching the passes. Their leading receiver last year was tight end Colston Loveland. You still need a guy like Roman Wilson that can take the top off the defense and be reliable in doing so. Do you need to have a guy like Braylon Edwards? No. Would it be nice? Sure. But it ain't what you got to have. What you got to have is a quarterback that can run the offense, is capable of making a play with his legs when the play breaks down, which is something I'll also say Mikey Keene can do, and a formidable rushing attack. And I think they'll have that. I really do. If you like the longer show, let me know about that in the comments below. Otherwise, I will see y'all on the flip side. Deuces.